Hey, it's Mike from Tech BB, and today let's talk about Dye's DM9 or their DM10, because pretty much the DM9 and the DM10 are pretty much exactly the same gun with the exception of one or two changes. Obviously Dye was working pretty hard on the NT, so they didn't quite make the changes to the DM9 as we would expect going into the DM10, but the NT was a really good gun out of the box, so we'll let them slip for a year. But let's open up the box and let's talk about the biggest differences, going back to the series. Now, the DM8 I wasn't that crazy about, because Dye for quite a few years still had that little on-off button underneath the barrel. I didn't like that, drove me crazy. Most people pulled it out and put like a CP, like continuous flow plug in there or something like that. DM9, they did away with it, which is why I really like the DM9 over the DM8. So we'll get it out of the box. Dye does a great job with their packaging. Very little has changed here. You still have the clamshell case, great color manual, warranty card, sticker. You also get a nice little barrel sock. You get a great little parts kit. Comes in a little mini, like a Tupperware case. Allen keys. Also comes with the new Dye lube. Now, actually, the new Dye lube that's come with the DM9 and the DM10, a little bit better than that, kind of like that green colored hair gel they used to use back a few years ago. This white stuff, I don't know what it is, but a lot of people are using it and it works really good. So this is actually really good lube to use with your Dye gun. You can actually use the stock lube and not have to worry about anything. Obviously they do make other lubes such as like Hater Marmalade or Hater Sauce, but all those work really good. We'll talk about lubing the gun here shortly. Gun comes with ultralight barrel, of course. Dye's signature barrel that they've had for years. Great barrel, comes in a stock 688 bore. If you want a tighter bore, Dye does make the 680, I believe it's a 684 bore. 684 bore. Obviously paint is getting a lot smaller nowadays. They're trying to cut costs, so the balls are getting a lot smaller. Used to be, a lot of the paint was 690 last year. Now all the paint is like 685 and smaller. So, let's put the gun together. And let's talk about the DM9. DM9 and the DM series gun, the DM9 and now the DM10, probably some of the most smoothest shooting, smoothest shooting guns in terms of spool valve guns that are out there. Just a very consistent, no frills, predictable shot every single time you shoot a DM. Dye does a great job. Anodizing is top notch. The milling is top notch. Got a great, design on it. I personally have never been that big of an ultralight frame fan. I didn't particularly like the ultralight triggers. I didn't like that flat blade design. Obviously, they tried to do something a little bit different with the DM9 with the new reach trigger, so you can actually adjust the pivot. But the DM10 now comes with the Ironman trigger, and it is amazing how good the Ironman trigger feels inside of the ultralight frame. It just completely wakes this frame up. Nice curved design, very easy to get on it. You still have the adjustable, the adjustments right there on the side. Something they did in the NT that hopefully we'll see maybe in the DM11 was they supported those little pins. So there's the pin has got the adjustment cone, but there's also a little needle that goes completely across, so there's less adjustment. I hope to see maybe in the DM11 see those adjustment pins reinforced all the way across. It just really helps keep the adjustments perfectly in tune. You got the Hyper 3 regulator. I've already got a video on how to take apart the Hyper 3 regulator. It's very simple. Grab it by the middle, unscrew the top, drop the piston out. About every 25 to 30 cases, you are going to have to back out your adjustment screw, replace the reg seat on the top, screw it back in again. Very simple. It just looks like a little pencil eraser. You pull that out, put a new reg seat in there. That is if your gun is having any sort of inconsistencies or anything like that, just replace the reg seat that's on the end of the velocity adjustment screw. Like I said, it looks like a little tiny pencil eraser, and it just pops right out. You put the new one in and you're good to go. But stock board is great. The DM9, the biggest differences between the DM9 and the DM10 are going to be, one, you're going to be going from the ultralight flat blade trigger into the Ironman trigger, which is a little bit more of that curved Sith design. And also the DM10, what they did was, instead of jumping from like 10 balls per second to like 11 and a half, you actually have those fine rate of fire adjustments. So it's like 10.1, 10.3, 10.5, 10.7. That's some of the biggest differences between the DM9 to the DM10. But other than that, very, very few changes with this gun. What I want to do is I want to bring the camera in a little bit closer. We'll weigh the gun. I'll show you how to take apart the low pressure regulator, take apart the bolt and lube it, and then we'll go out there and do an efficiency. All right, now let's do, probably the most common thing you're going to maintain on your DM, which is your bolt. Give it about a turn and a half, and out comes your bolt. Now the trick with spool valve guns is you don't want to put a ton of lube on these things, okay? The proper way to lube spool valve guns is a very small amount of lube, but do it often, okay? Clean the gun out, keep your bolt extremely clean, but what you want to do here is you want to use a very thin amount of lube, put it all over it, but just lube it often. Every single weekend that you play, you have to lube your bolt. You can sometimes get away with going from Saturday to Sunday without having to worry about lubing your bolt. But, after you get to, 2 cases, maybe 3 cases tops, you're definitely going to want to lube your bolt. 99% of the problems, solenoid leaking, air going by your bolt, something going crazy, 99% of the problems that are going to happen with the DM are going to be this middle O-ring right here. This is called the bolt sail O-ring. If you have any problems with your DM, any sort of leaks or anything like that, just replace this first, the bolt sail O-ring. It's the most common O-ring to fail on the DMs. It's the most common O-ring that causes problems on the DMs. And anytime you have a problem with your gun, just change that O-ring. For the purposes of this video, we're going to do a little bit of hater. Very thin amount of lube. You don't want to put a ton of lube on these guns, and the reason why is what's going to happen is all that lube is just going to blow out your barrel. So what's going to happen is it's going to coat the inside of your barrel. Your gun's going to shoot terrible, and you're going to have your barrel is going to be, and your breech is going to be completely coated with lubricant, which is obviously going to affect how accurate your gun is because it's going to be causing hooks and spins. So very thin amount. You just want to put it on your thumbs like hand lotion. Rub it on the inside. Put a little bit in front. Put the top hat back into place. A little bit on your rear O-rings. And that's it. And one of the checks you can do when you put your bolt together is just give it a little flick and it should come all the way out, which that one does. And there you go. But a lot of people have a tendency to absolutely coat their gun in lubricant, and it's just a big mistake to make because all that lube, all that extra lube is just going to go right out your bolt and right out the front of your gun. So let's go ahead and put the bolt back into the gun. There we go. Now we just lubed our bolt. 90% of the maintenance is going to be done just like that. So now what we'll do is let's go ahead, pull the macro line off. And what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and remove our macro line fitting. I'm going to show you how to take apart and maintain your Hyper 3. Once you take off your fitting, you just take your rubber grip here, slide it out. There's a couple different ways to get this off. One of the first things I'd recommend doing is let's go down here through the bottom, see if it lets it go. There we go. Okay, so we've got our Hyper 3 off. Taking apart your Hyper 3, very simple. What you need to do is grab it by the middle. Now you can put a towel here or something like that to protect the anodizing. There we go. Unscrew the top part. Out that comes. Now what we do is just give it a tap and the piston will fall out. There it goes. Out comes the piston. And then you don't really have to worry too much about your velocity adjustment screw. You don't really have to worry too much about this swivel here. You can mess with it if you want to, but if it's not leaking, I prefer not to mess with it. Take a little bit of lube, go inside here, clean it all out as best you can. Let's lube up the piston. It's not a maintenance job that you've got to do a lot. Maybe once every 10 cases, maybe you'll go in here and lube this up, but these high pressure regulators don't require a lot of maintenance. And let's take apart the bottom piece. There we go. Break it loose, pop this off, clean off the little swivel donut O-rings here. Lube them back up again, clean up the inside. You're going to see a little bit of dirt on the inside of this pivot here just because of where, just because this is the first place that air goes into. Okay, put that back in. There we go. And we've just taken apart and maintained the Hyper 3. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take apart the low pressure regulator. Very easy to do. First thing you want to do is unscrew the 3 grip screws. Then what you want to do is let's go ahead and unplug the eye wire and the solenoid wire. And then what you'll do is you'll unscrew the back screw. Now something that's kind of cool is the screws that hold your grip on are the same screws that hold your grip frame to your gun. So it's always a good time when you do something like this to inspect your screws. If you notice that one of your screws is kind of chewed up, maybe looks a little bit, maybe looks a little bit on the dodgy side, it's not perfectly, it looks like it may be a little bit beat up, replace it. Now's the time to replace it. Don't try to screw it back in, strip it out, and then you end up having to send your gun back to die with a stripped grip frame screw. Replace it now. Now you're going to have 3 holes here on the back here on this little manifold. The front one's where your grip screw goes. The middle one, don't touch it. The back one is the only one you need to worry about. That's what actually holds your low pressure regulator in place. So let's go ahead and remove the retention screw here in the back. There we go. And now what we'll do is let's remove this little cage. There we go. And now let's go ahead and we will slide out the low pressure regulator. Retention screw out. Now usually what you can do here, you don't have to remove your adjustment nut, but sometimes it may help you get a little bit of a better grip. So we'll just pull it out just for this video. And now we'll grip it from the sides and slide it out. There we go. And now we'll carefully grab the piston and pull out the piston. That's about it. Now inside here, this is a good time to take a Q-tip and swab it out. On the inside here, try to make it as clean as possible. Remove any extra lube or dirt or anything that you see down inside there. I like using t-shirts to clean my paintball guns. Just because I can see if there's any sort of shavings or anything on it. So this looks pretty good. Let's clean up the housing here. Now these do use those conical washers, so if you have any questions, consult the manual if any of the washers fall out. Now with die regulators, this right here, these little black pieces here, these are what's called reg seats. 90% of the time, this is what fails inside of the regulators. After a little bit of time, just gonna have to take a dental pick, pop that out, put a brand new one in there. It's pretty much like a pencil eraser. But if you start getting weird velocity fluctuations or something like that, usually it's the reg seat that has to be replaced. So they have, I believe they have a couple of those in the parts kits. If not, you'll have to contact Dye to get them. Or if you're unsure on how to do it yourself, just send your gun in to Dye and they'll take care of it for you. Okay, so we got the low pressure regulator completely taken apart. So what we'll do is we'll just take a little bit of this hater sauce. We'll pre-lube the inside here. Make it a little easier to slide everything in. Lube up the outside here. Let's lube up the piston. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Now on the low pressure, on this housing here, there is a notch, and the notch has to be facing up towards the locking set screw. So let's go ahead and make sure that that notch is facing up. Just press it in with our finger. There we go. All the way in. Take our locking set screw here. Lock down our LPR housing. And you can check it from the back here and make sure that the set screw is facing up. Give this a quick once over. Screw this in through the back. Now you're going to want to screw this in pretty much until, you don't want to screw it down super hard, but you just want to kind of want to screw it down until it gets a little bit firm, and then leave it right there. That shuts off your low pressure regulator. Then we're going to put some air into the gun, and when we put air into the gun, then we'll set our low pressure regulator. Now with the low pressure regulator on the Dyes, it kind of works in the exact opposite of how LPRs work on poppet valve guns. Low pressure regulator only controls how hard the bolt comes back. It does not control how hard the bolt goes forward. So keep that in mind also. If you try to run too low of a low pressure regulator, what's actually going to happen is your bolt's just going to stick forward, or it's going to stick halfway. I took a look at this front screw, and this front screw looks a little bit chewed up. I want to make sure that my grip frame screws are the most perfect screws that I have. That one looks good. Give that a couple turns. Got to make sure that our eye wires are running alongside of our solenoid. Make sure these are pushed down, very important. Go. Now we're just putting in our grip frame screws. Okay, now you want to always inspect this for gaps. You want to make sure there are no gaps at all. Usually gaps are a telltale sign of a pinched wire. We'll put in our solenoid wire, and then we'll put in the eye wire, which goes down here at the bottom. Turn it on. Okay, let's check to make sure our eyes work. And they do. Alright, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this back together again, and we'll go out and do an efficiency test. Now, a common question that I get before we go out and do the efficiency test is, what should I set my LPR at? Dye recommends 3.5 turns from all the way in, back it out 3.5 turns. Basically, right now I have the LPR turned all the way in. If you look in, I don't know if you'll be able to see inside the bolt here, but let me see how still I can keep this. But the bolt right now is forward, so let's go ahead and start backing it out until it sucks it all the way back in. Okay, it's getting there. It's about halfway. There we go. So it just sucked it all the way in. We can see that it's kind of delaying turn off the eyes. You want your bolt to have a crisp forward and return, at least at a bare minimum. Then what you can do is get it over to a chronograph and make sure that it's hitting, that you're getting a nice consistent stream with no drop off whatsoever. Then you go about another quarter turn from there and you should be good to go. But Dye recommends 3.5 turns out from all the way in. Tech PB, we're about to do the efficiency test on the DM10. DM9/DM10. Very little changes from the DM9 to the DM10. This one actually is a DM9. The biggest changes that they had was basically come now with a Ironman trigger, and also the board is a little bit has a little finer adjustability on the rate of fire. So let's go ahead and look at the gauge here. Looks like we're sitting right at about 3,900 psi. So let's go ahead and take a tank temperature reading. And it looks like we're sitting right around about 95 degrees on the tank. We'll load up our first pod and we'll shoot over the chronograph here. That looks good to me. So we'll start shooting. Now, a common question we get is why do we take a tank temperature reading? Well, the biggest difference is a lot of people on the internet were stating that we must have had a cold tank or a hot tank or whatever, and that's why our gun or their personal gun shoots so much better than the one that we had at home. So, Tech PB is here to condense the nonsense, and so we put we purchased one of those little temperature gauges, laser temperature gauges, now we don't have to worry about hearing that nonsense coming from people. We just loaded in our 5th pod. Now you're going to see a nice bright pink stream coming out of this gun. RPS Premium was nice enough to sponsor the Tech PB show. It's going to allow us to do a lot more gun tests, a lot more efficiency tests, a lot more game footage, goggle cam videos, and everything. We really appreciate RPS Paintball for picking up the Tech PB show. And it's absolutely amazing paint too. I usually only buy this stuff like on my birthday, but special occasions. But I mean, I'm so happy that we've got good quality paint that we can shoot. And get some sort of consistent results. In the past, we were just basically shooting whatever we could afford. And, sometimes it could be, tournament leftover paint. Sometimes it was, just white boxes, basically whatever we could afford. But now we're shooting good quality paint. And it looks like we just put in our 8th pod. And it looks like the gun ran out of steam. So let's go ahead and... Yeah, that's it. That's it? Go ahead and hit it one more time. I think you got about another pop or two. No, that's it. Okay. There's really not much in there. I mean, there's maybe 10 balls in there. Yeah. So, I'm going to put that in.
Might as well call that a pod.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, I guess we'll call that a pod. Right. So the DM, we shot, slide over. We shot, let me see that pod. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8 pods out of the DM. DM9/DM10. All right, so now we're done with the efficiency test. And let's go ahead and weigh the gun. Turn on the scale. Let's go ahead and turn this on here. Oh, you guys should be able to see that. Hopefully you guys can see there's a battery in there. Let's see, you can see that? Yeah, you can see that. Okay, cool. This gun weighs in at 2 pounds, 3.4 ounces. 2 pounds, 3.4 ounces for the DM9/DM10. And so what's my opinion of it? I mean, this is some of the best, some of the best spool valve guns that are on the market. Anodizing's flawless on them. The milling is flawless on them. They're just great looking, great feeling guns. I'm so glad that they did away with that little on-off knob that was on the front of the gun. It feels a lot better in your hands. ultralight frames, a love-hate, but with the new Ironman trigger that's on the front, that new curve trigger really makes this trigger, or this grip frame for me, feel a lot better. But easy to maintain guns. Like I said, 90% of the problems with the DMs are going to be the bolt sail O-ring, that main O-ring that's in the middle of the bolt. If you're trying different lubes out, say for instance like hater sauce or hater marmalade, and you're still hearing a little bit of hiss coming from the solenoid, most of the time you might have to go to a thicker lube like a Dow 33 on the bolt sail O-ring. So just keep that in mind as you're experimenting with different lubes. I've seen people, they'll put a really thin lube in there like a hater sauce on a worn bolt sail O-ring, and then all of a sudden they hear a little bit of a leak and they can't figure out what's going on. So we got I get questions about upgrades. Well, I just got a DM9. What are some upgrades that you recommend? The board on the DMs are kind of, you know, they work, you know, but they don't have the adjustability and the you know, the adjustability and the ability to kind of change them and really tweak the modes and stuff like that like you can. So there's a bunch of different boards that are out there. Virtue makes a great board for it. They make an LED and an OLED board. Tadal, same thing. They make an LED and an OLED board. Another company that's starting to come out with DM boards, you've got Hater is coming out with a really nice board that syncs up with the Empire Prophecy. So if you're a Prophecy fan, definitely check out the Hater boards. Also, Seventh Element is now coming out with a new Bluetooth board for the DM. So there's a lot of upgrades in terms of boards for the DM series. Something else you can get too. A lot of people, I think the Billy Wing bolts, unfortunately I love Billy Wing, but these bolts are a little bit overrated. It's pretty much a red bolt with a kind of a pillow on the front of it. Not that big of a difference if you put this in your gun. There's better places to put $100 than the Billy Wing bolt. Personally, I think the Tech bolts from TechTPaintball.com, the Tech bolts kind of do a little more for the gun than the Billy Wing bolt. But the, you know, obviously you're supporting a pro player, but pretty much it's a red bolt with a pillow on the front of it. You're not going to see that much of a difference between the stock bolt and the Billy Wing bolt. $100 is better spent elsewhere. The Tech bolt works really well for the DM. It's pretty simple. Start your dwell at about 10 to 12. Shut off your anti-bolt stick. Increase your LPR all the way until pretty much you max out your LPR, and then go chrono and then go from there. But it's pretty easy to install the Tech bolts in the DM. Todd on his site has got a great manual. Something else that's really cool too. Tech also makes an HPR tester. What this does is this goes in line between your HPR and your regulator and allows you to put a gauge on it. Okay, so there's a gauge port right here. You put your gauge on it, it pivots, this screws into your gun, your HPR screws into this, and this works really, really well if you're trying to adjust your HPR and trying to get your gun tweaked as best possible. I would recommend don't put just a junk 0 to 160 PSI gauge on this. Go get a really good gauge. You can get them from there's a bunch of different gauge companies, but look for like a good 0 to 200 PSI, nice big dial gauge so you really know what your HPR pressure is if you're doing some tweaking between dwell and HPR. Another shameless plug, Tech PB barrel, $30 over at ANSgear.com if you don't want to beat up your ultralight barrel if you're doing a lot of diving and stuff like that. Something else too, Dye's not doing too hot right now with their upgrades for the DM. The titanium barrel back. If you like the silver look of the titanium barrel back, I highly recommend that you just buy a silver ultralight back. The titanium barrel back almost weighs as much as the stainless steel. Now maybe I'm the only idiot that didn't know that, but the titanium barrel back is a lot heavier, almost twice as heavy as the standard ultralight aluminum. They're going to be like, how's that physically possible? Okay, my friend who's a chemist says that the titanium is supposed to be so much lighter than the aluminum. Well, that's why we have a scale. I say, look. Okay, the aluminum barrel back. Let's see, where did I put the? There it is. The aluminum barrel back weighs in at 2.6 ounces. I believe that's right. Yeah, 2.6 ounces. Now, while I have that there, let's go ahead and reset the scale and let's weigh the. let's see right here, the titanium back. Okay, titanium back weighs in at 4.0 ounces. So a little bit deceiving on getting the titanium barrel back versus the aluminum barrel back. If you like the silver, I would highly recommend go with the aluminum if you're weight conscious. And who isn't weight conscious? So that's it for the DM series. I kind of wanted to wrap the kind of an upgrade show into it, just because I always get questions as to what are some of the good upgrades for the DM. But honestly, the gun shoots good stock, man. It's a good shooting gun right out of the box. You really don't need all of the upgrades that I have here listed on the table. I personally would probably start with the board. That's a really good upgrade. Then maybe look at getting the bolt, and then from there maybe look at upgrading the barrel. But I mean, this gun is a flagship marker right out of the box, and I definitely think you'll enjoy it. Dye's got great customer service. They're at all of the events. These guns have won a lot of tournaments, a lot of national championships, and they work really, really well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll load up our first pod, and we'll shoot over the chronograph here. That looks good to me. So, 4.0 ounces. 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 4.0